Greg, hey, Greg, the is that meeting ID number a phone number so somebody can call in on?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
yes. I sent that to someone just about 30 minutes ago. Who was that? I sent quite a few emails. Oh, Bob Wood had asked for that. So I did send that out, but we will go ahead. I have started recording. So this will be available to anyone and everyone who'd like to reference it going forward. But just want to start by welcoming everyone and thanking you for taking a few minutes out of your evening to learn a little bit more about this tweak to the tournament sanctioning process for the Maryland State Youth Soccer Association. If we've never met before, I find that hard to believe, but my name is Greg and I serve as Executive Director for the Maryland State Youth Soccer Association. We are fortunate, it looks like we have Brad Ruse, who is one of our board members and also serves as our State Cup and President's Cup Director. He is on with us today. We also have, who all of you will know, our state referee administrator, Jimmy Graham, our state youth referee administrator, Gabe Ado, and then our state director of instruction, Larry Middleman. And I'm just scanning. If I missed anyone else, I do apologize. But we are all on tonight, and the point of this is to give a little bit more background to why the tweaks, the improvements are being implemented, what they're intended to do, and what in totality it actually means. And Eric Endler had given me a call, I guess a week or so ago, and gave the great recommendation to hold this webinar. I thought it was really great feedback. And he also provided a number of questions in writing that tonight I want to kind of provide answers to all of those questions, and then just open it up and have a discussion about any other questions that may be out there to make sure that we are all on the same page and are fully understanding why we're making this tweak and what it's intended to do. So again, this is being recorded and it will be made available to anyone who would like to reference it at any point going forward. Before I get started, Brad, Jimmy, Larry, or Gabe, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I just think it's another great opportunity to kind of get together with the referee leadership within the state of Maryland. I think everybody knows MSYSA is committed to helping provide the best referees, and in the state of Maryland, we just had a very successful summer program with referees at both the regional and national level. And so, again, I think I kind of look forward to these meetings. As you all know, I officiated for a long time in basketball, still do some high school soccer games. And so I consider all of you on this call good friends of mine and appreciate the chance to be together. So thanks again.
Yeah, I'd just like to say as well, thank you to everybody who's joined us. As you know, I think over the past 2 or 3 years, we've entered a new paradigm since Mr. Watson's passing, where we want to become more collaborative within the state, with the State Adult Association, as well as the State Youth Association, who provides us the vast majority of our games, quite honestly. And I want to thank MSYSA for taking the time to listen to us as a referee program, addressing some concerns and at least giving us some direction as to where we want to go forward.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for joining. I echo all these comments. I would like to just stress this is the best forum. This is the best opportunity for your voice to be heard and any questions or concerns to be raised. We're all here, at least a good group of us are here. But I don't want anyone walking away from the conversation with any questions or any open items, right? I really hope that you guys we all can walk away from these types of conversations, but especially tonight, with confidence and comfort that we're moving together in the right direction. So thanks for joining. It is appreciative for the folks that did take the time out of their evenings to join.
All right. Well, thank you all again. So let's start at the beginning. The tweaks and what they specifically are and why they're being implemented beginning September 1 of this year. Which, if you're watching this in the future, September 1 of 2023. So you're all familiar with the process by which a tournament becomes sanctioned within the amateur youth space here within MSYSA's jurisdiction, which includes the entire state of Maryland and also the District of Columbia for anyone who wants to participate with MSYSA as opposed to or in addition to Virginia Youth Soccer Association. The process for as many years as I can remember has included a number of documents being submitted to MSYSA. Those have typically been submitted by the tournament director or someone working with the tournament director. And one of the various documents was a letter that was submitted as part of the overall packet from an approved assigner that would give the state association the necessary information that there were enough referees, according to that person, to cover this event at that time during the year. 2, or B, that they would only be using certified referees through the U.S. Soccer referee program. And then they'd kind of be signing off on it and saying, if you have any questions, let me know, et cetera, et cetera. And over the years, what has happened is, in some cases, we've gotten into situations where those letters have almost become like boilerplate, where whether it's done purposefully or not, I mean, we're not here to really talk about that. It would just kind of be, here's this blanket statement. Yes, there's plenty of referees. We're good to go. I'm going to assign all of these officials for this event, this tournament. And here it is. And, in some cases, it would be submitted months before the tournament would even be held. And of course, life happens and things go on. So, and in some cases, we were finding those letters were being submitted to MSYSA. And the assigners themselves, whose names were on it and whose signatures were there, didn't even know the letter had been submitted on their behalf. So in an effort to do a number of things, one of which is to ensure that all of you as assigners, to ensure that you are aware of what it is that you're agreeing to do for a tournament, we're having that letter come to MSYSA straight from you. When we say straight from you, it's still an electronic process. It's still just an email, and we would certainly encourage you to include that tournament director or other leadership person from the tournament so that they're aware that that part of the process has been completed. But that will then give MSYSA 100% confidence that you're aware that you've agreed to do this thing and in what capacity, and we shouldn't have any issues there. And so not just the confidence in knowing that it came from you as an assigner, but also helping to establish what we call expectations. And so as opposed to maybe in the past, agreeing to cover a tournament, we'll call it the XYZ tournament, and you agreed to do this 3 months before the tournament took place with the assumption that there'd be 100 games. And then we actually get to the time of the tournament, and now there's 250 games, or some other crazy things happen. They have to move locations, and it's in parts of our jurisdiction that maybe you don't have as many referees that you work with, and on and on. You know way more than I do all the things that go on. Having in writing from you that I've agreed to cover, for example, 100 games for this tournament. In the event that changes, and we'll talk about this specifically, the expectation was that you would assign referees for 100 games, 100 matches, not 250. And so it also provides some increased sort of protections as far as expectations are concerned on your part as well. So that's the basic premise of this improvement. 1, it's coming straight from you to MSYSA, and 2, you're going to be noting in the specific number of games that you anticipate being able to cover and what percentage you anticipate that being. It might be only 10% of the tournament, but it might be 100%. of the tournament. And we believe that will be an improvement over what kind of has been happening in the past. And we believe that will allow everyone to have a bit more clear expectations of what should be expected as that tournament comes to be, and all those teams are coming in some cases from all over the world to participate. So that's it at a very high level of what's being done and how. The only other aspect that I didn't talk about was we have established what we're calling the approved assigner list. The only thing necessary to appear on that list is to sign the pledge. And that pledge is straightforward. It says that you're in good standing. I know that's one of the questions I'll talk about. You're in good standing with MSYSA and the Maryland Referee Committee, and that you commit to working together. And I'll talk about that more specifically to help make sure as many of these matches have coverage as possible. That's it. That's the pledge. And so I think what we should do is get right into the questions, and then if there are additional questions after hearing the answers to these that have already been submitted, I think we should just kind of go popcorn style and people just ask the questions as they see fit. If that sounds fair, I will get right into the questions. And again, thank you to Eric for sending these over. It was very helpful, and I do appreciate it. So the first question, when is the assigner letter due? It's a great question. We don't have a specific hard, fast deadline for if your tournament is taking place the last weekend in November. It has to be received by this week in September, for example. But typically, tournaments are having the entire packet, which will now include this letter coming from you as the assigner. It's typically into MSYSA at least a month before that tournament is being held. It's kind of difficult to go too much further out, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. But typically it's about a month, if not more. And to build on that, we don't typically receive requests to affiliate or to sanction these tournaments with just 2 or 3 weeks before the event. And that's because per the sanctioning, the tournament is to be displaying their sanctioning paperwork when they're promoting and advertising their tournament, so that the teams who are coming and choosing to participate are aware of who has sanctioned it and what insurances may apply, et cetera, et cetera. So as far as that question, it would certainly be before the tournament receives its sanctioning, and you should be trying to get that letter in at least a month before that tournament is looking to be held. The next question, how does this due date coincide with the tournament application date? And I think I just spoke about that, but if there are any additional clarifications needed, just make a note. And if I don't cover it, then go ahead and ask that question. The next one. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that we try to close out each question. Is there any commentary required on that previous question, and then we can move on? I don't want to leave anything open.
We can. Some of these questions have a bit of overlap, though, so it might be wanting to do that. I might accidentally open the question back up again. So,
fair enough. I just want to make sure we're not going too fast, because
that's good. Number 3, what ability does the tournament have to flex up in number of games after, for example, that letter is submitted? For example, a tournament believes they'll have 600 games, but when the application deadline closes, they have enough teams for 800 games, and they want to host all 800 games. And so my response here is that the tournament has the full ability to accept as many teams as they have capacity to serve. Nothing has changed there. And again, this will come back in a future question, but for you as the individual, the assigner who has said, I'm going to, for example, cover and have enough referees for all 600 anticipated matches, when the application deadline closes and the tournament leadership realizes they have enough to accommodate 800 matches, it would certainly need to be a conversation between the tournament leadership and you as an assigner and or additional assigners, which we'll also talk more about in a second. But at the end of the day, this idea that you as an assigner could be held accountable for doing something that you hadn't agreed to do doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So again, this is also where it helps protect you as an assigner to say, well, I knew that I could do this. That's what I agreed to do. Your numbers changed, and that's okay, but I can't be held. I don't know that I can get enough for the 800 matches. So again, a lot of common sense will have to go into this as we move forward. But fortunately, I think we have a lot of people who have a bit of common sense involved. And so again, to be very clear, the tournament certainly can, provided they have enough field space and what other considerations they have as far as resources. But you as an assigner would only be held accountable for what you agreed to do in writing when you submitted that letter. If you can do more, I think that's fantastic. I think that's a great way to service the game further, and it would be greatly appreciated. But I hope that I've been clear on that one. The next question, will MSYSA or the referee committee be reviewing the work of an assigner post-tournament? Meaning, will you be expecting the assigner to provide a report or a reconciliation with the number of games that were covered versus the letter that they provided? For MSYSA, the answer is no, not at this time. But I'm going to pause and defer to our state referee administrator, Jimmy, to see if anything has changed for the referee committee.
Yeah, this is actually the first I've heard this comment, so I'm not exactly sure Gabe's thoughts, but at least from my perspective, I will not expect any report either, unless there are major issues for which the referee committee can address. I'll state that, in 2023, we registered 1,800 referees total, which was a 15% increase over 2022. In 2020, no, I said that wrong. Last year, we registered 1,800 referees, which was an increase of 15%. In 2023, we registered 1,900 referees, which was yet another 6% increase in referees. So I do think we're on the 7-year track that I had planned, that hopefully we can get back up to 23 or 2,400 referees throughout the state in the next 3 or 4 years.
Gabe, did you have any additional thoughts on that?
Nope, I agree.
Greg, I have a question. Since referees are all independent contractors, they may be working for several different assigners. At what point do we, not all 1,800 referees are going to be eligible, vacation, whatever. So when you work the numbers down, is it okay for a referee to work from 8 to 8? At what point, can we say, okay, that's enough tournaments, that we're out of referees? Now, I understand some referees come in from out of state and that kind of stuff, but how do we, since they're independent contractors, as an assigner, I can't say that the 200 people that work for me or whatever, they're all going to be eligible to work.
It's a fantastic question, and it is referenced in the questions I have in front of me a couple of times, but can certainly give some comments to that now. This idea of MSYSA, right, on that approved assignment list, I know there's a lot of concern about, well, what happens? I don't have, we'll call it control. I don't have the ability to force these individuals to go do this thing. I know I have this pool of referees available, but again, it is possible, if not likely, that they do have relationships with others who are also utilizing them in different capacities. They take vacations, they get busy. I get it. What happens when I say, oh, I have enough to be able to, in theory, to do this thing, and then I'm not able to do that thing? This is where, again, common sense is going to have to come in. If a pattern is established where you, Jeff, are saying, no, I can fill 200 game slots, and you fill 50, and that happens over and over and over again, we're seeing that there's a pattern here. At some point on your side, you'll probably have to say, man, I know I have enough to do it, but historically I'm not able to. And maybe you're going to have to be a bit more honest with the tournament leader as well, saying, I should be able to fill 200 matches, but I'm only really able to fill 50, so I better scale that back a little bit. And if it continues to be a problem, then this is where, again, we're going to have to step in and say we need to do a better job here. We need to figure out so that, again, it's one ecosystem. It's not just you. It's not just the referees. It's not just the tournament. It's not just the state association. It's not just the teams. It's not just the parents. It's not just the players. It's all of it. And we all are entering into these situations with a certain set of expectations. And, you know, if there's a tournament director on, I know Brad certainly does our tournament and a large one for one of our clubs. He's selling to these parents and to these players a certain expectation as well. And if he's receiving, you know, from you as an assigner that I'm going to do 200 matches and only 50 are covered, now he has an issue as well. And so again, it's not, this isn't about trying to do anything other than improve clarification, set these expectations, and have it be a bit more transparent so that we're all on the same page. And so that as we go forward through time, as these patterns are emerging, we can find solutions to improve upon those patterns as well. So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
That answer. Thank you.
Hey, Greg, Steve Cassell. So question around that, and I think you're on a good point of kind of expectations from all sides. As the package is brought up, right, to MSYSA, let's say the example that you just had, right? We expected 600 games. That's what your application's for. We've got a letter from the assigner. His expectation or her expectation is to cover 600 games. That's in a month or two ahead of time. As part of the approval process coming back from SYSA, might be a good idea to say, yes, we've approved. We understand right now it's at the 600 ref level. Our assigners can cover that. If it turns out to be something different or higher, that might be a challenge going forward, but certainly the team will work on a best effort to cover those additional games should they come through.
Steve,
What's your thought on
that is
coming
exactly,
together as a team around that?
that is exactly what we're saying we want to see. You're spot on. That is exactly it.
Okay, so what you're saying is, from your folks' perspective, as you approve the tournament, right, you're going to set an expectation back with a tournament director that says, we're approving this. We see it's 600 refs, right? And in writing, you'll say, right, it's approved. 600 refs is the expectation. If it's more than that, certainly there'll be a best effort to execute on that, but it's a best effort kind of.
So Steve,
100%.
Steve, I would add one note to that process that you're talking through, that the assigner, when they submit their form or documentation of that, what number do you use? 600?
600, right?
Right. So you are going to be saying, I'm going to be covering 600. If that tournament comes back and actually has 800 or anything over 600, then it's already been, the expectation's been set. And now the tournament knows, the assigner knows, the state knows. We are all now on the same page with this process going forward. And that's a key element that I'm glad that you brought up, because maybe that's being missed. So if the tournament changes, their application was 600, maybe you said 400 and another assigner came in with 200. So now 600 are covered.
Right.
That's what we want everyone to be working with, is the same number. Is that fair?
No, it's absolutely fair. I think what I was, looking at is just to make sure we have, I'll call it the three legs of the stool here, right? MRC, right? I'll say the state for Greg and the team, and the assigner community, right, is all together on the same page, right? Aligned, right, around the number of games and the expectation levels, so that there's not any misunderstandings downstream.
100%. That's what this is doing.
Okay,
And
good.
and I wanted to piggyback off one comment that Jeff made earlier about, the 200 people, right? Part of this process is going to encourage collaboration so that, Jeff, your 200, and I'm just throwing out the number you use, whatever it happens to be in real life, right? But now that we want to encourage and foster collaboration so that every one of those 1,800 referees have the opportunity to call you, email you, text you, whatever, Snapchat, whatever we're doing nowadays, to get assigned to that tournament, as opposed to you working within your community exclusively or your circle exclusively. We want to figure out more ways to encourage that you have the whole reach of every referee in the state of Maryland at a minimum, right? Beyond additional reaches that assigners may do, with the metro area, Delaware, if you're North Pennsylvania, if you're South Virginia, things like that.
So if I can interject something here. Okay, so it's during the initial application process by the tournament directors, at no point in time do they put the number of games they anticipate to have. They may put the number of teams. So somewhere along the course of the application process, we need the number of games that the tournament is initially says they're going to have needs to be stated, so that as it goes to the assigners who are going to assign, then we can pick and choose how many we not pick and choose. We can let you know how many of those games we think we can cover based off the referees that we have. So that's a key element because 500 games can correlate to 800. 500 teams can be 800 games, and 500 teams, can turn into 600-700 teams. And then how many games are you correlating that back into? So that's a key piece that's missing in the initial upfront process when the application is being submitted.
Mark, it's not only the number of games, but also the geography of those games, whether they're going to be in Montgomery County, Harford County,
True.
County. Because it's one thing for an assigner to say, I'll cover 500 games in Montgomery County, but when the soccerplex is going to be closed because it's been raining for a week and those games get scattered to every turf field from here to the Eastern Shore, that's very different.
Yeah, because the number of games we're talking about not only correlates to number of games, but it's number of slots because of the fact that how many one-man games are we going to have, how many three-man games are we going to have. So that also determines how many referees that we really need to seek and look at. So all of that plays into it, and none of that's in the application process. Just the number of teams doesn't tell us anything as assigners. We need to know what number of games we're anticipating, and like Eric said, where the games are going to be, and also, what's our breakdown of age groups. If we have 75% are one-man games, well, that's pretty easy to cover. But if 75% are three-man games, then that's more difficult.
So, Mark, you bring up a great point. In addition to what you just mentioned, I was thinking that it was really when Eric interjected. So it also might be important for you to know, if possible, if we, redoing this, capture the number of games on a field on a given day, right? Because if you have a field that is only going to have, let's say one game on it, that's different than a field that's going to have 5 games across the entire day.
True. Yeah, fields with lights, fields without lights. We
Right.
have high school fields that don't start till noon. All of that
Right.
plays into all of this. But usually from a geographical standpoint, we can, if we know where the one-man games are, where the three-man games are, how many are where, what fields we're playing, it gives us a decent idea for those of us who've been doing this for a while. And Gabe, to your point about getting out to the whole referee community, well, we all have that ability through OMS. We all can send emails through OMS to every single referee that's in the OMS Maryland database. And I can tell you that we do that, as a courtesy to all of our, other groups. We send that out to our initial group first because that's who works for us. And then after that, then we go to the other, we send it out through the OMS to all the referees. We want to give everybody the opportunity. That's, one of the things I think we all should be striving, especially wherever we have games, reach out to every referee, new or old, that's been around a while or brand new, and try to get them into our databases so we can get them games, because that's why we're losing them, is because we're not giving them games.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mark. I wanted to make sure that even those assigners who are not associated with CASRA, I just want to make sure everybody understands all assigners. If you're registered through Maryland, through OMS, you have access to every registered referee in the state. I will also share, although now that this is being recorded, I'll say caveat this by saying it's not finished yet. OMS is working on a mechanism for different states to share their referee data. So, for example, you can have access to the Virginia information. If Eastern Pennsylvania uses OMS, then you can have access to their registered referee information. That is coming down the pike, and that was a feature discussed in a May OMS workshop down in Nashville, Tennessee.
So one point of clarification, you have access to every referee's data, but you do not have access to email every referee directly from OMS. Just point of clarification for everyone
Yes.
on the phone.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so then we're going to keep moving on. Those were really good questions. So thank you, Mark. I do want to make a point about the different additional variables or levels of detail, the data that you mentioned. There's certain amounts of information that the state association will need in order to continue sanctioning tournaments. And we're talking about some of that being improved upon here. But where we sit today, some of that additional information you're talking about, the granular data, that is going to, at this time, remain between you as an assigner and whoever it is you're working with from any and all tournaments to get that job done. Some of that level of detail we just simply don't need right now from the state association. But I would hope that if you're not already, that going forward, before signing and submitting a letter in this context for a tournament, that you would have those discussions with the tournament leadership to get those answers, so that you'll have the confidence when you're saying, okay, well, this is what I can do for this tournament. So again, just for clarity's sake, at the moment, for the state, what we need is just the total number. But again, as far as where it is in the state and how many are on a given field and can one start at noon, that's information we're going to ask you to work out with the tournament leadership for now. Which again kind of feeds into the next question. I want to make sure I hit all of these. I'm sorry, I missed one. So what is the penalty to a referee if they give an assigner their availability to work a tournament and then the referee does not fulfill their obligation? And I think this question is getting back to that original point and what Jeff was talking about. Like, we really can't force them to do this. And so the answer right now is, first of all, there is no penalty from MSYSA to that referee. And again, MSYSA will take that into consideration if we're running into issues where you as an assigner are agreeing to cover X games and X matches, and then post facto, it turns out you only were able to cover 10% or 50% or whatever. I want to pause and ask Jimmy, Gabe, or Larry if there would be any penalties from the referee committee for a referee who said, I'm available, I'll work, and then ended up not actually doing that.
To the best of my knowledge, there would not be right now. I will say this: U.S. soccer bylaws do allow for formal complaints of ethics violations towards as directed at a referee. So if you're finding this to be an issue with a particular referee, you can always attempt to make a formal complaint about an ethics violation. And it will be covered by U.S. Soccer's bylaws.
Jimmy, is that one time? Is that getting burnt 2 times, 3 times? What is that?
Missy, I have no idea.
I mean, it's all happened, okay?
Yeah, so Missy, I would say it's up to you. When you decide you want to file a complaint, then the committee will look at it. it's you answer that question. Is it once and that you've had enough, or is it twice or three times and you've had enough? I don't know.
Well, the problem is the referee shortage. So let's just take us. We got 2,500 referees in our database. That's travelers. That's rec referees that aren't certified. That's certified referees, right? So out of 2,500, you're probably only going to get probably 20% of the people to work a tournament. Okay. And that's of 2,500 people. So if your database is 500, I would suggest that you don't say that you can cover, do any more than 100 referees, right? Because that's probably 20%. Everybody doesn't work tournaments,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that. But, and I'm not talking give availability to, let's say, Bethesda, and then you go work somewhere else. Like, okay, as long as the communication's there, that's great, right? Because it happens, I don't know, 23 years now it's happened. So, I mean, I don't know. Look, we need tournament referees. So how many can you turn in?
Well,
Right.
look, yeah, and I want to stress, and I'm going to stress it again because I'm going to. It's not how many referees I can get to do games; it's how many games I can get those referees to do. So, I mean, look, we had a brand new referee this last weekend, didn't show up, didn't answer the phone call. Are we going to turn him in for a violation? No, we're probably going to turn him in to say, hey, can you guys contact this new referee and help him understand what's going on? Okay. As for the other ones, that are constantly doing it, I think we'll know when to turn them in. If we turn them in once, is there going to be some kind of a log and database that we're going to keep on these guys so that if Steve turns somebody in, then I turn somebody in, and then Jeff turns somebody in, do we have a pattern that we don't see because it's only once for us, but for you guys, it's going to be 2 or 3 times. So then you can address it. That's, I think, another concern that we have is the accountability for the referee who basically, screws multiple assigners. So
So if I can just interject for a quick second. One is a question. I would think, do all the associations or the assigners, do you guys have within your organizations like fines or a system where if a referee doesn't show up and again, it's not so much that they've said they have ability, I'm guessing that they've accepted the assignment would be more along the lines, right? So is there a fine system to the actual referee? And then the other two comments would be that, and Mark, this is where I think you've hit it right on the head of the nail, is the collaboration between the groups, so that if there is a particular person who is doing this, and we've seen this in basketball, in baseball, and in soccer, where guys shop around their games, right? They take a game and all of a sudden a better game comes up. And then they just bail on the people that they've already agreed to go on. So that collaboration, I think, is twofold. One, we should be working together to weed out those people and make sure they understand that they can't get away with that anymore. And two, hopefully, if we're working together as a group, we're not allowing. I mean, I can only tell you, like in college basketball, you're going to get fired if you take a game, let's say from let's say the Northeast, and then all of a sudden you lie and say, oh, I'm sick or something, then I go take a game for the Southeast Conference, right? You're fired. You're fired from both. And again, it's because the commissioners have a good relationship and communication with each other. So I'm hoping that's kind of my biggest goal, is how can we help each other? And so, Mark, your point is really well taken, and I'm hoping that this will help initiate more of those conversations among all of the signers. Okay, that's just my point. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, but I mean, it's a good one from the signing perspective, right? Because our communication, for the most part, at least between organizations, is very informal, right? So, in other words, good, example, right? I had a ref that came to me last fall, and if they've been reffing a while, I start, hey, where you been reffing? What kind of games have you been doing? And it became pretty clear, oh, they were doing certain kind of games at the Soccerplex. So next time Missy and I were talking, hey, let me talk to you about, and then after Missy groaned for 15 seconds, right, it became very apparent, right, that was somebody that's, kind of worn out their welcome in multiple places. But, to your point, Brad, I mean, I think one of the things I was thinking through when we were talking, the assigner community, I mean, we should have an absolute distribution list of 15 or 16 assigners of us in the state that, assigner distribution list 1, bang, right? Steve finds something out, thinks about something, maybe it's an idea sharing that goes out to the rest of the assigners across all the different associations about where we can share information, right? But, formalizing that I think would be very helpful.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next question. What does cover a game mean in the context of this policy? For example, there are 301 referee games and 303 referee games. So 1,200 slots to be filled. As it comes down to the wire, the assigner can only cover 1,100 slots, meaning 100 of the 3 referee games will only have 2 referees and a club assistant referee. Does that matter to MSYSA in this context, and how does it relate to question number 4, which was the question about, are you submitting a report, are we reviewing it, etc.? And the answer is no. Again, you were able to fill the games. You had referees there. It is allowable that if there aren't 3, you can use 2 and a club's line person, etc. And then this idea of what does cover a game mean goes back to prior discussions. It means whatever you as an assigner agree to and put in writing to MSYSA, whatever you've agreed to with that tournament director. And that's why it's really important that we are, as much as possible, quite specific on what we're agreeing to do.
Yeah, I think, Greg, this really goes to the fact that if we have a referee, we have a 3-man crew supposed to be, or 3 referee crew, excuse me, that's supposed to be out there, and only 2 show up, we consider that game covered. So that doesn't give the assigners, I'm going to put myself out there as a assigner, it doesn't give me the assigners the incentive to say, oh, I could cover 300 games. I can get 300 games covered with 1 person. That's pretty simple. I can do that. So that's where we're keying on this, is what does it deem coverage, covered. So because we do have times where we have referees just no show. They get in car accidents, they get sick, so we don't want to be held out there. It's considered uncovered, and then there's going to be some fallback to us.
I consider, if you don't mind me chiming in, Greg, I consider a game covered if it follows U.S. Soccer's policies, which means you can actually assign 2 people to a 3-man slot or 4 slot game, and you can use club linesmen in a game in a period of emergency. However, we will not use a 2-whistle system. You will use the diagonal system control as prescribed by U.S. Soccer.
Mark, I would want to take that a step farther, or further. I always get those 2 mixed up. So apologies for my English, because I see where you're going. I'm connecting the dots here, reading between the lines. I think that there 3 referees need to be assigned. And in that emergency situation that Jimmy just alluded to, those are the exceptions where a referee or a club linesman is required, as opposed to how you phrase the question that, hey, I'll just put 1 referee on there or 2, and I know I can complete the process. That's disingenuous to the game, the referees, the tournament director, the players, coaches, and just everyone down the line.
And it is a violation of the assigner code of ethics.
Right. So I did want to stress that I think that your answer should be, you assign 3. That's what you're committing to. And in the times of exceptions and emergencies, we deal with those. But that's not the rule. The rule is 3.
Okay, very good. The next question. Can an association sign the pledge on behalf of multiple assigners, or does each assigner that plans to assign referees for sanctioned tournaments need to sign the pledge? And the answer is that each certified assigner will need to sign the pledge if they want to appear on the approved assigner list, which is very much intended to be a public. It is already up on our website document, so that if and when individuals who are looking to hold and sanction a tournament within our jurisdiction, and they go there to receive the most up-to-date information, they will have the list. At the moment is planned to be listed alphabetically by last name of any and all assigners who they can choose to utilize to have certified referees assigned for their tournament. So
Greg, real quick, that wasn't meant to be the pledge. If I wrote that, I was mistaken. That was meant to be the assigner letter. Can CASRA or MWSRA or MMOA or WIMSOA or whoever sign the letter and have multiple assigners work to try and fulfill that commitment? That's where we're going with that.
I apologize, but I think the answer is still in the same vein. We're looking for the assigner that's committing to do this, whether or not they're working with one association or another. It's that individual assigner saying, I'm committing to doing X. But that actually perfectly dovetails into the following question, which builds on that, which we'll use CASRA as the example. And the question reads, will you be evaluating the assigner's game counts in the context of what they commit to, or what the organization as a whole, so in this example, CASRA, commits to? For example, CASRA commits to covering 900 games. CASRA plans to use a total of 3 assigners. Does each of the 3 assigners need to provide MSYSA with the expected number of games that they each plan to cover? For example, A, B, and C each commit to 300 games, but it turns out assigner A actually does 500, and B and C each do 200. Then are B and C penalized in any way? So again, I get that there's a lot of concern about this idea of being penalized in some way. But I think this goes back to an answer we've already provided. Number one, these letters are going to be signed and that commitment's being made by an individual assigner. But at the end of the day, if that tournament, even if 3 assigners each committed to providing referees, as long as that happened in some combination, I think it's mission accomplished. I think that the job got done. And if that meant that assigner A needed to lean more heavily on assigner B or C, I think that's really the point of this, is that that's really what we're looking to have happen, so that as many matches as possible are having as many referees assigned as possible, for the benefit of all. Are there any questions about that? What is the obligation of the tournament to set a schedule and stick to it? And I think this goes back to that prior question. And at this point, there's no such requirements, but at the same time, you as an assigner would not be in any way held responsible for doing something that you had not agreed to do. And then the question kind of went on and gave an example that we've talked about already, where due to weather, games are moved from one location to another. Well, again, be specific in your letter. That's not what you agreed to. You're going to make every reasonable effort to still assign referees for those matches, but common sense, would have to rule and say, well, that's not what you agreed to. It's wonderful if you can still do so, but unless that is what you agreed to and you knew that going in, but that's what your letter will tell all of us. Let's see, I think, we're almost at the end. Next question. Tournaments often use non-Maryland assigners to expand their reach into different pools of referees. Are those non-Maryland assigners required to sign the pledge and provide the same letters? Absolutely. Any assigner that wants to assign any certified referees to any MSYSA sanctioned tournaments will need to be on that approved assigner list, and that means they will have to sign the pledge. Where they live, where they typically operate, to me makes no difference. If they're looking to operate in this jurisdiction, this is the approach that everyone will be following. Three last questions, and then we'll kind of open it up. And I'm sorry that this has taken a little bit longer than I thought, but I think this has been very good. What does it mean to be in good standing with the Maryland State Referee Committee? As far as our assigners understand, they are in good standing with U.S. Soccer as registered assigners, but our assigners would like to know if that is one in the same, or if the Maryland Referee Committee has additional requirements or rules to be in good standing with them. I will defer to Jimmy.
So the short answer is no. There's no other certification process or additional requirements. Remember, the referee programs sponsored by the state are national programs. Maryland nor any other of the 55 state associations can add any requirement to your registration. What we will say is that if you pay your registration, take your online exams, and register through Maryland every year, then you're in good standings with the state of Maryland.
And then the next question is same question, but for MSYSA. And the question goes on to say, our assigners have no knowledge of the requirements to be in good standing with MSYSA. And so my response to that is, what it means is that you as an assigner are not in any way in any violation of any of MSYSA's policies, rules, bylaws, etc., that may apply to you. And I say that in a broad context because there are some policies that would apply to you as an assigner in different contexts. And I'll just give one brief example. Starting August 1st, as a result of a meeting we all had together in the state office, a behavior expectation policy went into place. And if you were at a sanctioned match and you were a spectator, for example, and you had done something that violated that policy, per definition, you would not be in good standing. Again, that's not going to happen. None of you will be doing that on the sidelines, but that's just an example of what it means to be in good standing. It means that you haven't done anything to not be in good standing. And to be very clear, I'm unaware of any assigner that would be in bad standing. So again, but that's just, you kind of always have to put that, right? Even if it's just very rare instances that it would apply. Last question that I have here. What does, quote, I commit to working together to fill game assignments for the benefit of all, end quote, mean in practical and layman's terms? Taking a skeptic's view on a new policy, our assigners view that clause as very broad and potentially detrimental to them or our organization, while it could be positioned as a benefit to all. We could provide you several what-if examples if you want. I do think we've talked about this, maybe not purposefully, but I think the whole idea of working together is exactly what we just talked about. Whether you happen to be assigner A, B, and C that's associated with one association or not, this idea of how can we work best together for the end goal being having as many of these matches within these sanctioned tournaments covered, filled, full game assignments as possible. Again, if there are examples that you want to talk about, maybe I'm taking a too simplistic view, but that is truly what is meant by that. So that's the answer to that one.
Yeah, who wants to step in on that one?
So I'll throw my 2 cents in.
Shocking.
I can
Shocking,
throw
Mark.
2 cents in after that, Mark.
I'm
If
very-
you don't
I'm
hear
a-
all.
I'm a very bashful person, so I don't know how to put this in right words. Okay. Anyway, talking about within the context of the tournament that you're trying to assign. We're not talking about having an assigner, or are we talking having an assigner who's not doing tournaments, that a tournament that weekend, being asked to come in, hey, can you send out this? Can you do this? Can you do that for these other tournaments? If we're not there, we're only talking about working together to get the tournament that we are basically contracted or committed to assigning signed. Is that what we're looking for in this statement?
Yes, I think at the highest level, that is correct. So let's start with the submission of the letter. We covered that you as an assigner will be having conversations with, we'll call it the tournament director, to establish how many games are anticipated. You're going to be communicating with them even before you submit your letter. This is really what I can do based on all the information you've given me: location, time, dates, number of games on field, whatever considerations you make. If that is not covering 100% of the anticipated matches, step number one is, as a tournament director, they now need to try to find ways, either working through you or with another assigner, to see if they can get the rest of their matches filled as well. Fast forward, even if they're able to get 100% agreed to be filled by assigners before that tournament becomes sanctioned, like we've talked about in some of these questions, things happen. All of a sudden, way more teams want to come because they love the state of Maryland and they love the tournaments that are, put on here. And now we're a week out and we realize, oh my goodness, we need even more. At that point, I don't know that you as an assigner who's already agreed to do as much as you can, which wasn't, filling the whole tournament. I don't know if there's much more that you can do, but as a tournament director, their ability and need to go talk with additional people, it's in their best interest to do so, to try to get all of the matches covered. And this idea of working together is that hopefully there would be assigners throughout the jurisdiction who want to and can. I think it was Jeff, the example we said, maybe you're only able to fill 50 game slots. Well, if you can fill 50 and that helps get a tournament to 100%, that's a good thing, especially if it's kind of last minute. Again, we don't want to really be too active in that space. We're just trying to say, let's put it out there. Let's be clear. Let's manage those expectations. And when we say work together, that's what is meant. But I think you guys have examples of maybe where that doesn't work so well.
Yeah, that does not. I'll just say it. I mean, I'm sure most everybody on this call knew I was going to say it anyway. The reason I say it is because if you assign a tournament, well, since this one's already passed, let's just say Memorial Day. And I had already communicated with my tournament director, Kathy, that I was going to use one up wherever that is and one from down in the Virginia way, right? So I'd already planned that with her authorization, but there's not an assigner on this call, if they're honest, that will say that they will help everybody even on this call. And that's just how it has to be. I mean, it's a business, right? And I don't know how else to say it, but look, people don't get along with me. I'm okay with that. I do what I do with my tournaments, and I get who I trust to help me in a tournament. I pay them accordingly, whether they send out an email. I just talked to Brad about this. Whether they send out an email for me, I pay them for that email. Whether they want to, load the people that aren't an arbiter and put them on games, they have views, and we pay them for that. But everybody's not ever going to work together, everybody in this state. And if anybody doesn't agree with me, please speak up.
I do, Missy. Disagree.
Who is this?
This is Jeff Rice. And I do, because inside Kaiser has decided, and Mark will agree because Mark did it and Kaiser stopped him. But Mark Jennings was getting MMOA to do certain fields in certain locations. And inside Kaiser squashed it.
No. Jeff,
okay,
maybe you need the whole story, Jeff.
Hold on.
May
We're not
know
gonna,
the story,
we're
but I
not,
know
we're not going in. Okay,
Guys,
Jeff,
this
let's-
is not the forum for
Yeah,
this.
it's not the
This
forum
is
for
not
this.
the forum
And
for
that's totally not the reason why, and that's why we're not gonna get into that here today. So let's not You
Well,
know,
I'm
let's not drag this through.
arguing Missy's point where you tried to get people to work together, Mark, and it was stopped.
And
Okay,
we're
I
not
would,
doing.
let me, this is not
Thank you.
not the individual forum for that, but this is what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna agree and disagree with Missy and make it a little bit more broad, right? In the end, the person that is your primary assigner of a tournament has to be in communication with how the tournament is going to be covered. Okay, and I think Greg and we all agree with on the board about this. So the person has to be, if that's Missy or whoever. But if you're saying, Missy, that people don't like each other or whatever, and they won't be willing to help each other, that's the way it's been for a long time in a lot of people's eyes. And that's what has to stop. And that's what we're trying to get to. And I think in the end, we all agree that that has occurred in the past. And that's the past. All we can say is, can we now be committed to help one another to make this easier and better? And kind of piggybacking on that, you guys have a hard job. I can tell you in all the conversations that Greg has had with the staff and with the board, there was never any mentions of penalties or trying to penalize people or anything like that. That was never the intention. It was never meant to be like that. It was meant to be, what can we do as a group to make things better? One of the things I see coming out of this as a tournament director is that it will help us to do a better job of communicating. I think we've done better, but we can do a lot better. And Eric and I just had this conversation the other day. We are better, but we can do a lot better. And I think that helps the assigner. As Mark, you were saying, the more information you have, the better you can do it as far as covering the tournament. That's number one. Number two, and Eric can accuse me of being late to the party, and that's fine. But for years as tournament directors, we focused on recruiting teams. I now know, and I think that the tournament community is starting to understand that the referees are a very important part of the offerings that we have. And so that we have to do a better job of making this something that the referees would want to work, that we've got to do a better job of working with the referee associations. And I've heard a lot of good feedback and a lot of negative feedback just on some changes that we're going to make that are going to benefit the referees. So if that now means that the tournament committee or the tournament community is going to now finally recognize the importance of the referees and how we have to work with you, this is all a positive step. It really is. It may not look like it right away, but it really is. But we have to get rid of the old thinking. We've got to start thinking differently, because that's the only way we can help each other and make this better. And I don't mean to sound like a soapbox, and I apologize, but
no, Brad, I'll jump on the soapbox with you because it's what I expect as well. Okay, I know for a fact, and everyone on this phone call has known me long enough that there are assigners not on this phone call that are just going to be pistols to work with. I don't care. I expect us to all work together to benefit the referees. Okay, because some of the changes that Brad is talking about are some of the changes that, quite honestly, Missy, you complained about the Faraday mentoring group about. And we're trying to bring that down to the lower levels so that people have an opportunity to learn, so people can see what Maryland means to the referee community in soccer by sending 20 referees to regional events. All right, by sending 9 referees to national events and every single referee getting a final or semifinal appointment. We're all proud of the work that we do. And I expect that we all try and work together, some more successfully than others, and that's fine. I get their personalities, but that's going to be the expectation that I have.
If I can just string in here for a second, I want to talk about something Brad talked about. When you talk about the tournaments right now, for CASR events, we use our CASR assigners. We have 4 or 5 assigners, that 3 or 4 assigners usually for the big events. If other assigners come in that are not CASR assigners, the CASR assigner can't be the main assigner, because we're not going to give somebody else outside our organization access to our database and then our proprietary information, which is everything that goes along with our business. So that's not going to happen. And I think anybody who has a business sense would understand that that's a good business move. And it makes sense. So when we have other assigners that are going to be assigning that are outside, they got to handle their own stuff. They've got to manage it. If they need help, they can ask for help, and then emails can be sent and so on and so forth. But nobody outside of our database or their database is going to have access to it. It just wouldn't make any sense. So
please, Mark, I apologize. Don't construe what I said.
No.
Okay.
I'm strictly talking about piggybacking on what Brad was talking about having a main assigner, as I'm going to call it through. I can't remember the exact word Brad used. That's really not how it's going to exist in this world. The assigners can do their own thing. If it's a group of CASR assigners or a group of MMOA assigners or NWSA assigners, they're going to sign in their database. And if they have trouble getting stuff done, then they're going to have a decision, to just request help. And we can do that. That can happen. But we're not going to monitor what they do, and we're not going to, so that piece of being able to say like, I can handle everything for Bethesda, or I can handle everything for Elite across all the assigners, is just not going to be there. If there's a problem with the field, it's that assigner who's responsible for that field's responsibility, not anybody else's. We have to worry. Each assigner is going to have to focus on what they need to focus on, which is their assignments. Okay. And that's all. I mean, I think that's just a reasonable expectation to go on with that. So, I mean, this is going to change how we assign going forward. I mean, it really isn't but will it require cooperation? Yeah, it's going to take a while for us to get there. I'm sorry. You can't expect it to happen overnight. We've had too much,
I know the history.
No, I know you do. And that's why I don't think anybody on this call, we should expect to see a magical change overnight, but if we can work to it, you can. But proprietary information is ours, theirs. They keep it, we keep it, and we work with the tools that we have to get everything else done.
Agreed.
Okay.
Hey, Greg, I have one other question.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jeff.
Since you're collecting all the information on all the tournaments available in the state of Maryland, and I won't say it's a primary assigner or a primary group, is in that information you collect from that tournament, will there be a place posted on your website that these referees can go to, that Jim or whoever the state referees committee can, or any other assigner can say, hey guys, if you don't like working for me, there's a whole list of all the tournaments that are available in the state of Maryland. Here's the list and here's the contact. And that may help. I don't know if other people from out of state can see that. Just an idea, of how to get more people for all assigners to, just spread the word. Is that I'm trying to help Jim out on saying, we need one spot, and you're collecting all the information. So just a thought.
Well, thank you for the thought. At the moment on msysa.org, if you click sanctioned tournaments, it does pull up every single sanctioned tournament. It does not currently state at that sort of high level who the assigner is or who the assigners are. But if I heard you correctly, you're asking that we might make that public in that place so that any referee that wants to go here and say, oh, I'm just looking at the very first one on the website. Oh, the Maryland United FC Boys Invitational College Showcase, February 4th through 5th, 2023. I'm a referee. I'd like to work that event. They could click, this is the assigner working this event, and contact you. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, or however that group that was working, when they send you the information, here, post this contact information, and all the referees who are interested, I don't know if they're in our database, or they could be in Pennsylvania, they could be in Virginia, they could be coming down from New York that weekend for all I know, and they're making it a vacation weekend. And there are ways for different assigners to contact other SRAs to just make sure they're in good standing. So just a way to expand our pool. That's all I'm thinking of, to expand beyond our Maryland pool of referees.
Well, again, I appreciate the idea. Let me circle up internally with the team and see what the thought is there. But I think that's a very interesting idea for sure. Are there any other questions about this tournament sanctioning improvement that goes into effect September 1, the pledge, how to appear on the approved assigner list, or what that expectation is going forward? I heard you loud and clear, Mark. Not overnight. We'll give you about a week to get us. We'll be good to go. Any questions before we say goodbye tonight?
Yeah, Greg. Hey, Steve. And so I was out of the country for a few weeks, got back, have read the pledge, and I just want to focus on the bottom sentence of the pledge because it was obviously carefully and thoughtfully written. I imagine, right? Reading that. What were the thoughts behind that? Do you have some examples of, right? Because it says it MSYSA reserves the right to refuse listing a certified assigner for any reason and may remove a certified assigner from this list at any time and for any reason. That's not boilerplate, that's thoughtfulness, right? So I'd like to understand, right, because it's very unilateral, certainly. What was the thought process behind wording it in that way? Do you have some examples of the past of where you might have removed of a signer unilaterally from being on a list or servicing, right, MSYSA? Just want to get your thoughts.
Good question. So I don't have any examples of anyone ever being removed, just like I don't have any knowledge of any assigner being quote unquote in bad standing. That language, well, I appreciate you thinking that it was thoughtful. It is absolutely very boilerplate for us and for many who operate in similar spaces, just ensuring that as the entity that has the responsibility as an organization member of U.S. Soccer, that we always reserve the right to be able to do these types of things. So, for example, you're 100% correct. We absolutely reserve the right for any reason at all or no reason at all to not have someone be an approved assigner to work and to assign matches for our sanctioned tournaments. I don't have any other information to share because there hasn't been any example that I have, but we absolutely do reserve that right.
If I could piggyback, so are you, is the purpose of this is that only the people that are on that approved list can assign tournaments in Maryland?
That is 100% correct because it's driven by this pledge, and that pledge is, again, this idea of transparency, making sure that we are all on the same page, and the only people who will be allowed starting September 1 must be on that list. And so if there's only 2, they're going to get a lot of business potentially. So I hope all of you sign that pledge and get it back to us ASAP.
So any tournament that's already been approved doesn't fall under this. So if the assigners that have already been contacted and approved for those tournaments, they're good to go anyway, but only the ones that, okay.
Yeah. Grandfathered in, whatever you want to call it. This doesn't go into effect till September 1, but any and all additional or new tournament sanction requests following, once they're submitted following September 1, it'll need to follow this process.
Are any in process, Greg? Maybe that we could share that.
I don't know if any are in process, but again, so long as that process has been started, the process has typically been one person submits all the necessary documents. I would consider that grandfathered in. But if the tournament has not sent in anything, once we get to September 1, this will be the process that they'll follow. All the tournament directors have received a written communication notifying them of this in a very similar way that all of the known certified assigners have received information about this. So there shouldn't be any surprises, but if there are individuals, either it's a new tournament director or someone who maybe didn't receive the email for some reason, they'll receive a very kind note from our tournament administrator, just letting them know when that request comes through. Last call. Any other questions? All right, Larry, do you have anything for the group before we say goodbye?
No, I don't have any comments. Assigning is not my bailiwick at the moment, no. I was just here as an observer. I'll stay that way.
We appreciate you and all you do nonetheless. Gabe, anything for the group?
Again, thank you. I hope that you leave this call more comfortable and more confident that the end goal is just together to get more referees on more games, because the state's not going to slow down in trying to drive and grow the game. Tournament directors are going to continue to try and grow their business and their tournament. And we are obviously a big part of that. But as I think Jim mentioned, right? Or someone mentioned, or it was Brad actually, right? So whatever was in the past is in the past, and we can't continue forward based on the past. We need to work together to have a better future. And that starts tonight. Thank you so much.
Jimmy, final words, sir.
Just a thank you to everyone, and have a good evening. I appreciate the time of everyone, as well as our MSYSA guests, for running so long. Thank you.
And Brad, anything for the group?
No, thanks a lot again to everybody. And Larry, you were supposed to be on this call as a mentor. So you didn't do a very good job of mentoring tonight, even though you normally are excellent. So I just wanted to clear that up before we got off.
Okay.
Very funny, Brad.
I didn't know that was my role. I prescribed listening as my personal role.
Okay.
Better.
All right. Well, again, thank you all. If any additional questions come up or you would like additional clarification, you can always reach myself or Brad at the state office. And I know our referee leadership here, Jimmy and Larry and Gabe, are also more than happy to talk at any time. And as Jimmy mentioned, we are fully committed to continuing moving forward and continuing improving in many ways, but this is certainly the next most appropriate step. So thank you so much for all you do. Keep up the great work, and we'll be talking again real soon.
Thank you.